In the 1940s, the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet was a major force. Primary role was to deter potential aggression in the Pacific. The fleet's composition included battleships, aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, and submarines. They were based out of Pearl Harbor in Hawaiian Territory, as it had not been declared a state yet. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, it resulted in significant damage and loss of a few ships, forcing the United States to focus to naval aviation and other strategies. The Navy's responsibility was also to transport Marines. They were able to mobilize the infantry quick and assist with amphibious assaults, whether it be sending out the UDT to check for explosives, mines, and provide a safe path to shore, as well as gunships and aircraft carriers to provide close ground support combat via airplane or artillery. Aviation was a new concept in warfare still at this time. Aircraft carriers were new to the fleet, kind of almost in a prototype sense, with science and aviation being incorporated into warfare. That's kind of how the inception of these began. There's 3 aircraft carriers that hit port at Pearl Harbor. You have the USS Enterprise, the USS Lexington, and the USS Saratoga. Strange enough, however, though, all 3 of the aircraft carriers weren't present the day that Japan had attacked Pearl Harbor. Strategically, the coincidence did work in the United States' favor. The absence of these U.S. carriers at Pearl Harbor was significant, as they could have been potentially changed the outcome of the attack. The Japanese, however, successfully did launch the attack, which significantly damaged the U.S. Pacific Fleet at the time. Cassin Young was born in Washington, D.C. on March 6, 1894. At the age of 2, he moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where his father operated a drugstore. After he had graduated from the Naval Academy on June 3, 1916, he served on the battleship USS Connecticut into 1919. He attended submarine school in 1919 and spent several years in subs during that period. He served on the USS R-22, USS R-3. In 1921, he and his family returned from Panama, and he assisted in outfitting the USS S-51. In January of 1922, he served in naval communications on Staff Commander, Submarine Division, Battle Fleet at the Naval Academy. During 1931 and 1933, Lieutenant Commander Young served on the battleship USS New York. He was subsequently assigned as commanding officer of the destroyer, the USS Evans, and was assigned to the 11th Naval District from 1935 to 1937. The USS Vestal began in Erie. It was authorized on the 17th of 1904, but the ship was renamed the Vestal in October of 1905, well before her keel was laid down on the 25th of March, 1907 at the New York Navy Yard in Brooklyn, New York. Launched on the 19th of May of 1908, the Vestal was placed in service as a fleet collier with a civilian crew at her builder's yards at the 4th of October, 1909. Pacific Fleet was shifted to a new base in Pearl Harbor following Fleet Problem XXI in the spring of 1940. The Vestal also made the move after returning from the West Coast for an overhaul at the Mare Island Navy Yard in Vallejo, California. The Vestal resumed her duties on the 6th of December 1941. She was moored alongside the USS Arizona and berth F7 off Ford Island to provide services to the battleship during her scheduled period of tender upkeep between the 6th and 12th of December. The U.S. Navy in 1919 established the naval base in Pearl Harbor on the southeastern side of Ford Island, which was also ceded control for the Army Air Force at the time. Due to its location in the center of the harbor, where the water was deepest and potential for maneuvering greater along the shores, the coast of Ford Island became the de facto mooring location at the Pacific Fleet's battleships and took on the nickname Battleship Row. As a grouping of 7 U.S. battleships, it was based off of Ford Island, which is just right off the coast of the island of Oahu, up until the Japanese attacked on December 7th of 1941. The ships bore the brunt of the Japanese assault. They were moored next to Ford Island in the middle when the attack commenced. The ships were the USS Arizona, California, Maryland, Nevada, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and West Virginia. And of course, there was the repair ship, former coal ship, that was civilian, moved to a maintenance ship, the Vestal, which was moored next to the Arizona. Before the attack on Pearl Harbor, it's defended by 4 U.S. submarines: USS Narwhal, USS Dolphin, USS Cachalot, and USS Tautog. They were all stationed in Pearl Harbor and participated in defending against the attack. These submarines engaged in anti-aircraft fire, sinking enemy aircraft and potentially contributing to the attack's overall outcome. The Japanese had deployed 5 mini-subs to penetrate Pearl Harbor and launch torpedoes against the warships. The 5 types, called A Ko-Hyoteki, or midget submarines, deployed, transported by a large I-type submarine. One was sunk by the USS Ward before the main attack began, and at least one entered the harbor and was sunk. Another, the HA-19, was captured after drifting to the east coast of Oahu. The USS Arizona was a standard-type battleship built for the United States Navy in the mid-1910s. Named after our 48th state, it was the second and last ship in the Pennsylvania class. After being commissioned in 1916, the Arizona remained stateside during World War I, but escorted President Woodrow Wilson to the subsequent Paris Peace Conference. This ship again was deployed in 1919 to represent American interests in the Greco-Turkish War. 2 years later, she was transferred to the Pacific Fleet, under which the ship would remain for the rest of her career. In the 1920s and 30s, saw Arizona regularly deployed for training exercises, including the annual Fleet Problems, excluding comprehensive modernization between 1929 and 1931. The ship supported relief efforts in the wake of 1933 earthquake near Long Beach, California, before budget cuts led to significant periods in port from 1936 to 38. In 1940, the Pacific Fleet's home port was moved from California to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, and as a deterrent to Japanese imperialism. On December 7th of 1941, the island of Oahu, the Japanese commenced their attack, led by Chuchi Nuiyomo, at 6:48 a.m. Hawaiian time. The Japanese invading force came in 2 waves, supported by 2 aircraft carriers. Of the 8 battleships that were on Battleship Row off Ford Island, all were damaged, 4 were sunk. And unfortunately, for the USS Arizona, it was the only one they were unable to pull out of the harbor. The Japanese had sunk 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, 1 anti-aircraft training boat, as well as the maintenance Vestal boat, which luckily was beached by Captain Young. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7th of 1941, Commander Cassin Young was aboard the repair ship the Vestal right next to the USS Arizona. Young organized the offensive action, personally taking charge of the anti-aircraft guns the Vestal had. When the Arizona's forward magazine exploded, this blast blew Young and many men overboard. Stunned, some drowned, some were shot. He was determined to save his ship by getting her away from the Arizona. Swam through burning oil, back to the Vestal, caused immense bodily harm. The Vestal was already so damaged, but it didn't want any further damage to happen. Young was able to get her underway and beached her, ensuring later salvage. For this, he received the Medal of Honor. He was promoted to captain February of 1942, and he took command of the heavy cruiser, the USS San Francisco. And on November 9th, 1942, during the naval battle at the Guadalcanal, he guided his ship into action against the Japanese. With open warfare on the Japanese Empire, the United States entered into World War II in the Pacific Theater, the largest battle area of any war in existence. Naval warfare, whether it be aviation or midway, but the Guadalcanal, one of the bloodiest battles that took place, would be where Captain Cassin Young would be heading next, 1942, November 7th. Captain Young's heavy-duty Navy cruiser, USS San Francisco, entered into battle. Naval ships, a large Japanese force providing coverage for the Marines to land at the Guadalcanal. On November 13th of 1942, he had passed from being hit with a burst shell while engaging the Japanese cruiser, the Heiau. He'd later be awarded posthumously the Navy Cross and commissioned a ship in honor of him. The island of Oahu, Hawaii is a beautiful place. The Pacific Island culture. Go to Pearl Harbor, and there's the tour of the Missouri. The Japanese Empire signed a treaty and disarmed. You head out to the memorial at USS Arizona. You look out and you realize 2008 Navy sailors died, 109 Marines, 218 Army, and 68 civilians. And over off to the side, you see a marker where the USS Vestal was. The ship that Captain Young moved off to the beach to protect and save other sailors from dying. After his death in the Guadalcanal, Cassin Young's final resting place is in the Philippines. Thank you for your service.